This is Power Athlete Radio. With your hosts, Denny K, Professor Booty, and the Luke Summers. And now, toes forward, hips locked, shoulders set, and retract those scapulars. It's time for some knowledge bombs.
Thanks for tuning into Power Athlete Radio. This week we are excited to chat with Lauren Polivka and Zach Anderson. These two hail from Atlanta, Georgia, where Lauren is a licensed physical therapist and Zach is a coach and former CrossFit Games athlete. The two began working with each other in an attempt to tackle some of the nagging shoulder and nerve issues that have plagued Zach for the past year. When an athlete who cares for a little more than winning at any cost is paired with a PT whose sole goal is to take your body to new levels of performance, a beautiful thing happens. This beautiful thing eventually manifested into what is now Repair and Recover services and workshops. The duo are now taking their simple and highly effective approach to active recovery and blowing minds through the seminar circuit. What are some of the ways in which Lauren diagnoses injury, deficiency, or limiting factor? And what results have caused Zach to prioritize his once non-existent warm-up and cool-down practices? To learn, you'll just have to stay tuned. This is episode 114 with Zach and Lauren.
Yo, what is happening, Power Athlete Nation? Welcome to another episode of Power Athlete Radio, the premier podcast in strength and conditioning. This is Denny. Today I'm here with Callie, Tex, and Bobby. And we have two guests today, Lauren Polivka and Zach Anderson. Thanks for taking the time to be on Power Athlete Radio with us, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
And how are my Power Athlete coaches?
Fucking great.
Incredible, as always, Denny.
Never been better.
Right, kick ass.
Our pre-show conversation consisted of some talk of the Matrix because we have Mr. Anderson on. So
I hate this place. All right, before we get into all that, Lauren, let's just kind of start the show off and tell the listeners, our three listeners, a little bit of like your journey, how you and Zach met, and a little bit of the R&R seminar that you two do, and just like your level, how you got to the level of awesomeness that you're currently presiding.
Sure. So I'm a licensed physical therapist and a certified health coach. I've been in the strength and conditioning and sporting field since 2004. At that point, I got involved in it when I worked for a company called Athletes Performance. The founder of that program is Mark Verstegen, who really helped sort of change the world of sports performance training with his methodology. That's really where I got influenced about all the recovery and the regeneration stuff, the things that need to happen outside of your standard, 60-minute to 2-hour training program. And as a physical therapist, in about 2010, when I met some of the other guys on air with us today, that's when I joined the CrossFit world. And as a PT coming from sports and going into CrossFit is really when I saw sort of a window and a gap in training and coaching programs that didn't emphasize as much true programming as it relates to repairing and recovering your bodies from competition and from your daily training routine. Zach and I met about a year and a half ago when I was treating a lot of the local Atlanta CrossFit athletes at a cryotherapy clinic, and basically it was after his trip to the games I met him, and we started working together to create a better healing and recovery plan for him.
Zach, take it away. So tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got involved with CrossFit and if you were a former athlete.
So I wrestled in college. I went to a small school at Newberry College in Newberry, South Carolina. And the way I got into CrossFit is kind of a funny story, actually. So I was a junior in college, and I remember my dad called me up and said, "Hey, my buddy just dared me to do this thing called the CrossFit Open." This is in 2011, and I was like, "Cool, go for it, have fun." I had no idea what he was talking about, and then he called me back again. He's like, "Hey, I ended up getting 7th, and the top 20 guys get invited to this thing called the CrossFit Games. So I think I'm gonna go. Do you want to come with me?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, I'll go with you." So me and my brother Alex, who actually made it to the games this year, we both went out there and watched him. And he ended up actually winning the Masters division. Then we also got a chance to watch the individuals go. And I actually honestly remember laughing. We were laughing a lot at him. We thought it was silly. That CrossFit was funny. Me and Alex were both into lifting more like heavy, kind of West Side barbell kind of stuff, lots of deadlifts and squats and stuff. And so anyways, that happened. And I ended up going back to college and wrestling my senior year. And I really wanted to be a wrestling coach. But my senior year, I lost in overtime to become an All-American, and it kind of broke my heart and made me kind of not love wrestling so much anymore. It kind of made me feel sick to my stomach, and I was kind of really hungry to start competing again, and my dad had been begging me to try CrossFit, begging me. So I was like, okay, fine, I'll try it. And so I did CrossFit, and then that year about 8 months later, I won the Southeast Regionals, and then I went to the games, and this was in 2013, got 10th, and that's kind of all she wrote, I guess. Now I'm kind of gung-ho about it. I've been struggling with some injuries the past 2 years, and that's how I met Lauren, as she said, and just kind of took off from there.
Yeah, that's awesome. And unfortunately, you're giving anybody who's listening to this who joins CrossFit and thinks that they're going to make it to the games a year later, you're giving them complete false hopes. Because, I mean, obviously you had a really strong athletic background, and you had been, more importantly, let's note that you had been doing serious strength training up until that point. So your base level of strength was pretty significant, I imagine, if you had been following Westside and been dabbling in other strength training programs before you got into, the conditioning aspect or maybe even the Olympic lift aspect of those training programs. So I think that's cool that you took to it so well. And as far as your injuries now, I mean, what are you kind of battling with, and how did Lauren play a role in shoring up some of those weaknesses?
It's been the same injury for the past 2 years. Lauren could probably even honestly explain it better than I could, but it's you want to, yeah.
I'll take over when it comes to the medical terms. So basically, Zach, like one day, sort of started feeling like some numbness, weakness in his arm, which eventually came out of nowhere and led to some actual nerve. There was some nerve damage in a nerve that supplies a muscle, which is your serratus anterior. Your serratus anterior is the muscle that keeps basically your shoulder blade gliding on your ribs without, popping too far left, right, up or down, but it keeps the shoulder blade gliding in a smooth fashion. So we didn't know for a really long time. He saw a lot of doctors beforehand, but then just this year, like there was the final diagnosis with some nerve conduction studies that there was actually damage there, but that with the damage that has happened, that the nerve does have the potential to regenerate and heal and regrow. So that's sort of where we are right now. We're doing everything to keep the rest of the body completely healthy, to work on sort of all the things that sometimes outside of traditional CrossFit training we forget about, which is what we do like in our seminars, and basically doing everything we can that when he starts lifting heavy again, he's ready to go, more conditioned than he was beforehand.
Yeah, and I'm just kind of curious. Nerve damage is something that it's not super prevalent, but it absolutely does happen. And is it a result of volume, or is it a result of like a shearing sort of position, or is it like a postural thing in certain movements where, the nerve is pressing up against something?
Lauren would know better than me, but one of the reasons why it took so long, I probably saw up to like 7, 8 doctors, and one of the reasons why it took so long to get diagnosed, it took over a year to finally find kind of a solid diagnosis, and apparently the injury is pretty rare, especially the way how bad it is for me. And one of the big reasons they said that people thought the doctors said they thought it might have happened is because 225-pound guys aren't meant to be doing tons of muscle ups and pull ups and things of that nature. So big gymnastics and stuff. So
sure.
Do you know exactly what?
Yeah, I mean, mostly too. The most nerve damage comes from like compression. So you think about like someone who has nerve damage in their leg from their back, it's because like that disc is just sitting out, compressing that nerve all the time, and you're still loading up your back and lifting. And so eventually the nerve just stops being able to send signals down into the muscle. But in Zach's case, it's actually more from what's called a traction injury. So the nerve damage because of over lengthening. Different postures and positions and things that people do definitely can make one person more susceptible to it than somebody else.
Yeah.
So, that's a lot of the theory that we have about sort of movement is keeping that like underlining postural, stabilizing, like that foundational system, when you're starting to lift heavy and do things that maybe you're not built to do, but you're still going to do them, which is what sports and athletics is, that you're always sort of reverting back to those like foundational muscle firing patterns and movements so that you can withstand whatever it is your body's asking for it to do.
Yeah, I've heard of, I know that there is a set of, or a nerve, I guess, nerve bundles that run through underneath the shoulder and I think insert, behind the shoulder. And I've heard of because of overextension, or like you said, like it over lengthening. So I can totally see that occurring in something like where you're really reaching big extensions and like a muscle up. I guess I can sort of see that if that were the case. And Lauren, I want to just for our listeners, how did you get interested in training athletes? I mean, I know that you said you were sort of into sports performance even before you latched on to kind of the CrossFit community. And what drove your interest in that?
I have been a human movement nerd and like obsessed with injuries since I was little. So, I mean, as a gymnast when I was young, I would like fake injuries to my mom to like have to get, ACE bandages wrapped up and all of those things. So, it started when I was really, really young, and I always thought I wanted to do the athletic training side of it and sort of treat the injuries, but going through gymnastics and soccer and cheerleading and everything, all the training side and the human movement side is really what sparked my interest the most, which led me down the path of physical therapy. So I knew, when I was like 15 years old, I was already saving physical therapy school applications. So, yeah. And I always knew it was going to be sports. Like there was no question that it wasn't going to relate to fitness and sports. So
very cool. It sounds like you have a real passion for it. And, kind of going from there, can you tell us how the R&R seminar came about and what role you each play in the seminar, and, tell our listeners a little bit about what it is?
Yeah. R&R is just a concept I came up with to take a twist on what R&R, rest and relaxation, usually is what we say, because one thing we always say in the seminar is like no day is a rest day, like every day is a recovery day. And so R&R basically means, application of movement, or like, for example, Zach is sitting here with a Mark Pro on his glutes right now. So, that you're constantly stimulating your body through movement, through like accessory things. So different type of stim units or anything that may be to stimulate repairing and recovering of your body. Nutrition is huge, sleep is huge. And like I said, I wanted to do this for a long time ago, and we just got fortunate that one of the local gyms in Atlanta asked Zach to come in and do like some mobility sort of recovery type of class and training. So that was sort of our first opportunity to actually like get the program together, like get the curriculum together, and take off running with it, which it's been pretty awesome. I mean, this is like basic, simple things, and we're out there just with like simple bands and teaching simple movements and changing people's breathing patterns, and we're getting people coming back saying, I'm PRing more than I ever have. I never thought I was going to hit that. Like, so people just feeling good, healing their own injuries without having to go to doctors. It's super exciting for me. Zach.
Yeah, you pretty much summed it up. I mean, it's pretty much a no-brainer who I wanted to work with, who I was going to ask to do it, and it's kind of taken off ever since. It's been pretty fun.
Zach, does it ever surprise you at how little athletes know about taking care of themselves?
No, because when I first started doing CrossFit, I probably one of the reasons why I've been so banged up. I would never even warm up. I would never do anything. So I mean, I would say for me though, it was more so I just didn't feel like it was necessary, more so than I didn't know. But it doesn't ever really blow my mind that people aren't doing something or that they don't know something,
Yeah. Lauren, would you say that the seminar is more geared towards coaches, athletes, both, or even diving down a little bit deeper, would you impart more specific or I guess higher level learning type techniques for athletes who have reached a certain level of proficiency in certain movements, or is it all just kind of broadly beneficial for everyone?
I definitely say it's broadly beneficial. I mean, the one thing that when we do it for members and athletes is that I tell everyone is like, if you want to be doing these skills and these movements and you're showing up to the gym, you're not showing up to the gym to be like, yay, I conquered 3 miles at, an 8.0 pace, like on the treadmill. I mean, that's not, the people that are showing up for CrossFit are showing up with goals, even if they're never going to squat 200 pounds. I mean, that person's showing up to get stronger. And, they show up and the programs are for 60 minutes. And basically, I say it's your own responsibility as someone who wants to do these moves and lift this weight to understand your body and become aware of where your asymmetries are, where you're over dominant, and all the things that it's, your coaches, when they're in a group, they can't coach people through that. I mean, it's, they have to make sure you're being safe with your lifts and the weight and everything else. So from a member perspective, like members love it because it really teaches them about their own body and they can take responsibility from it. From a coach's perspective, I think the biggest thing, and like I said, the material and the curriculum is the same. The principles and bullet points are the same when we go to coaches. But from a coach's perspective, they're just able to give small cues, or when someone says my back's bothering, they say, go ahead, do this movement to warm up with. And coaches are in the classes, they're warming up and cooling down athletes a lot different than they ever have. And then like from a higher level perspective, I would say, again, just sort of like what Zach said, it's not about, are you surprised about how little do they know or whatnot? It's just, it's like people don't think it's necessary because it's so basic, or it's just never, been topics and conversations.
It's not high on the priority list for anybody.
Yeah. But with now, luckily recovery ideas and mobility ideas are coming out there that, the higher level athletes are taking it more seriously. And you do a simple thing, teach them some banded activation warm up in a particular progression, you can feel the difference immediately. So I think that's what latches people onto it.
So Lauren and I have had a lot of conversations about this, and what I love about her approach, it's not, hey, this or that's bothering me. It's she goes in and tries to fix the whole system and problem. So that's what I really like about kind of the program and the lessons she's teaching, and we're definitely going to get into a seminar to walk her through some of our warm up and diagnostic tools.
Yeah, that is true. Is that, a lot of times other physical therapists or chiropractors or someone will come up and be like, oh, well, what objectively are you measuring to know what's better or what not? And for me, I'm like, I don't care. Like the fundamental system, the movement patterns, how muscles work together or against each other, it all has to be balanced out. And if it's not, there's going to be an injury there. So I can give someone with a right hip problem the exact same program, changed with a little bit different emphasis for a left shoulder problem, because the fundamental basis of human movement, of posture, of breathing patterns is off. And when you change that, your body wants to heal and your body wants to move right. It doesn't like moving inefficiently, and it doesn't like moving in pain.
Yeah, I remember Lauren gave me my first FMS screening.
Oh yeah, that was back in the day.
Back in the day, and she just straight up said, no yoga for you. Because in an attempt to fix my flexibility, I would be risking too much injury in a yoga class.
Yeah, there's another guy I remember, you guys know, he did his FMS, and I was like, oh, please, we just need to teach you how to walk and how to sit again. Like, we're going basic. Drop everything. Like, this is a disaster zone.
Zach,
but he could snatch and squat really heavy.
Oh yeah, there are innumerable examples of people who can't even get into like our dead bug position, who can easily back squat double body weight for reps, if and it is pretty mind blowing, and it just makes you wonder about that from a coaching standpoint and from a PT standpoint, they're just moments, hours, days away from injury. Something's going to give, something's going to follow the path of least resistance, and that's, it's just a shame.
And this is hard to hear as an athlete, because you can squat 400 and you're hearing somebody say you can't do this or you can't do that. Lauren, do you have an approach of just kind of reining in an athlete, kind of humbling them, yet saying, hey, do this and that, even though it's not sexy, even though it's so basic, but it's so hard for you?
I would say one thing from the working with a higher level athlete like Zach, you totally do humble them in, and you give someone a simple move and they can't do it. That sometimes those guys are the ones that get more determined to do it. Like, how can I do all of this and I can't do this one simple thing? And I see people sort of becoming more dedicated by that, because it really ticks them off.
Zach, did you have any personal experiences where things were kind of like a mind-blowing experience with Lauren, where she sort of points out some deficiencies and you're like, holy shit? Anything like that?
I don't know. Do you remember any, Lauren? I don't think so. She's definitely humbled me in a sense of she tells me things that I need to do that I don't want to do.
Yeah.
But I take her at her word, always, and I don't mind, having to take a step back by any means. Do you remember any specific incidents?
Well, yeah, and you can't divulge too much, because obviously all your competitors are listening. Our listenership, our listeners are, there's millions of listeners out there, and they're all vying for your spot at the games. So
I want to be. It's pretty simple for me. I want to be the best in the world, period. And so if she's showing me something that I need to be doing to move more efficiently and more properly, then I'm willing to do whatever I need to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Zach's a different creature from that standpoint, that I'm like, no, you need to be doing this. Trust me, this is science. Do it. And he's like, okay, I'll do it.
It can be frustrating, but I don't ever second guess. Why would she tell me to do this?
I think some of the bigger things with Zach that we working together has been more on the physical therapy side. And I'll get an example is I do a lot of instrument assisted scar tissue work. And when I first met him, we were working on his knees, and he'd been to so many people, and it was how many months after the games already? 6 months,
at least 6
7 months,
yeah,
and nothing fixed it or made it feel better. And
I have some really bad tendonitis in both my knees.
And we basically got rid of the scar tissue in his shins, which is not the normal protocol, but that's a whole, idea of what we talk about in our seminars called the joint by joint approach, meaning the knees are going to break down when there's stuff in the ankles that aren't working properly. So cleared up stuff in the ankles, and he's could squat with no pain right away. And the same thing, like when he had some back stuff, is like, you know, treatment wise, we got rid of scar tissue in his ribs, like didn't even really touch the back. And that cleared everything up by making sure the ribs and the thoracic spine were doing what they did. So I'd say more so on our hands-on side versus any other thing.
Yeah, I would definitely say like the joint by joint approach has definitely opened my eyes a good bit, because, and you think for a lot of people, and like that when I coach class and stuff, like my biceps hurting, like I want you to fix my bicep, and you give them something that, I don't know, such as like the lat or something of that nature, and they're like, no, I don't want this, my bicep, it's not that, you know. And it's just like, just trust me, you know. I had to trust Lauren a little bit in the beginning, you know, things like that. And she's like, not treating the area that's, you know, plaguing me.
Dude, nothing sounds worse than having to get rid of scar tissue in your shins. What, I mean,
it was not fun, I'll tell you that.
Oh my God. I cannot imagine. Was it just like scraping type techniques?
Yeah, I mean, I know plenty of guys on this phone call know how good that feels.
First of all, I remember the days.
Hey, Bobby, what about when we actually made a video about how you can scrape yourself?
Yeah, so Lauren was the PT at the gym that we were kind of all at for a long time, and after several serious rugby injuries and broken bones, I would go to see Lauren, and she earned the nickname very affectionately, the Scrapist. So he would just butcher me badly, and one time I made this horrific mistake of going for a treatment during my lunch break, and that was really bad, because I showed back up in my office in a suit and tie, and she had freed up all this tissue in my neck and around a broken collarbone injury. And as soon as I walked into the office with the shirt and tie on, my colleagues were like, "Did you get mauled by a fucking grizzly bear at lunch? What happened to you?" So yeah, I've been down that path many times with Lauren.
I remember you guys, like when you couldn't get a hold of Lauren, you guys would. And this is going to sound so ridiculous, but you guys would basically nude up, cover yourself in whatever scraping oil was necessary, and I remember seeing guys in like the PT room like practicing scraping each other, like covered in oil with no shirt, and I'm just like, I know that there's a video out there that exists. It's great. So Lauren, can you talk to us a little bit about some of the assessment tools that you like to use when you have an athlete come in who, you know, let's take like a healthy athlete to start. I mean, someone that is just kind of coming to you for assessment, or, you know, going through what used to be or what is a modified like FMS type deal.
Yeah, so as of the last seminar we did was a coaches only seminar. Like we had about 40 coaches in Atlanta that came. So that's when I sort of developed like the most basic movement assessment thing. And it more is based on movements that you're going to prescribe actually to somebody. So you want to see, can you actually do this or can you not? And then if you can't, you're going to work on this exact test or whatnot. So with that, we do one, which is like the Gray Cook test, where you lie on the ground, feet up on the wall, break 90 degrees, knees in line with toes, arms overhead. And so that's the biggest one, that if people can do that, immediately tell everyone your squat form is because you are not strong enough or stable enough. Like, and then it's when we start talking about like the pelvic floor and your diaphragm. Some other ones is like a single leg bridge. So can you actually execute a single leg bridge, keep your pelvis neutral, and actually go through a full range of motion? If you can't, it means like one of your muscle slings is not working, and that your hip joint, you're not gliding in your hip joint the right way. So you'll never fire your glutes enough. So we have, and then like another one in that, because we have 6 movements. Breathing is probably the biggest assessment I'm doing on everyone right now. So starting in a seated position, looking at a breathing pattern. If they fail that, lie them on their backs, look at a breathing pattern. If they fail that, lie them on the side and look at your breathing.
So I did an article about rotation a while back, and then a big part of it was breathing. So we're seeing a lot of kind of sagittal plane and athletes and CrossFitters that are just they got the six-pack and they're locked down in front, and they have just an inability to separate their shoulders from their hips. So if you're working with a field sport or court sport athlete, that is required, period. So it's just interesting to see all these injuries occur just from that plane, especially with lack of breathing or lack of rotation, which then leads to affected their breathing and so on and so forth.
Yeah, definitely. We go through a process of learning that, and just how, if you breathe the right way, we say you're taking 23,000 breaths a day on average-ish. If every single one of those breaths is wrong, you're training a poor movement pattern. And as an athlete, like I always say, if I was a baseball pitcher and I show up at the training center and I'm throwing balls every single time I release a pitch, I know that my coach or my trainers aren't going to let me just sit there and throw balls all the time. The exact same thing of, hey, change your breathing pattern, practice that, and you'll see a huge change before fixing anything else.
Zach, having been through, I'm sure, her assessments before, and then having incorporated them in your warm-up and recovery type habits, can you say that anything that the way that you used to train in terms of posture, position, things that you used to do either with Westside or other strength training programs has changed just as a result of kind of having a newfound understanding for like biomechanics and all of the warm-ups and assessments?
I wouldn't say that anything has necessarily changed, but I've become more aware, for sure, of things I need to pay attention to, things that I need to warm up, or things I just need to be aware of, in my movement patterns and things like that. So I've always been extremely aware of my body and the way it works and stuff like that. And sometimes I feel like I annoy Lauren by telling her so many details that she doesn't even need to hear. But
cat fight. No.
I mean, we've had arguments before trying to figure out, are you telling me this because you just want to tell me, or are you telling me this because there's an issue? But I would say the one thing about Zach that was like, why one of the things he's such a good athlete is because he just has a natural ability to move so well that we like haven't struggled with a lot of that. It's more, I think, just making sure they're saying, you move so well, you don't have these issues, like a lot of people have issues, but so regardless of all that, like you need to trust me and add this stuff into your program, how you warm up and how you cool down, because otherwise it will break down. Like just do it regardless.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, definitely. She was giving me things to do, which like squatting, things that I need to work on and warm ups and cool down and stuff that I feel like I was already doing correctly to begin with. But I understand now, basically because of how beat up I am, that it's more of a preventative, thing more so than anything else,
Zach, has being aware affected your ability to CrossFit? Because I know a lot of that sport is just shut off and go. But if that goal is awareness, has that affected your ability to just turn it all off and go ham?
No, it hasn't. I wouldn't say it's affected me at all. I mean, I wrestled in college, and so I think that's where a lot of my mentality derives from and stuff. Plus, when I was in college, I cut almost 30 pounds, so I know how to, when it's go time, I don't think about anything else but just finishing the task at hand, But definitely in training though, it definitely and outside of training, definitely consumes my thought, most of the day.
In terms of nutrition, switching over from a wrestler's kind of cut weight, make weight mentality to now CrossFit's just eat, 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 from my perspective. Has that been an adjustment?
Yeah, no, I don't.
You shouldn't ask Zach questions about nutrition, okay? Let's just stop.
I actually have a pretty, very, very small appetite, I would say. I don't eat very much at all. I would usually have like a couple of eggs for breakfast, and then I typically don't even really eat again until late at night, hardly. I mean, I don't know if it's the volume of training that really takes away my appetite or what it is, but I know Lauren hates when I tell her stuff like that. But yeah, I do not have a big appetite at all.
You are hurting me, Lauren. I can only sympathize with you in knowing how much of recovery is reliant on just like good caloric consumption, you know? It's just, oy.
Yeah,
It's
like
so
there's
great.
this thing called like nutrient density and micronutrients, and it fuels your whole system.
Yeah.
That
you
is the
serious in
number
this?
one butting heads conversation between Lauren Polivka and Zach Anderson.
So, you know, from in comparing your, I guess, seminar style and your PT style to the numerous other, not even competitors, but like other, whether it's mobility WOD or FMS type screening, what do you think you do differently? What's kind of like a standout approach? I mean, the cool thing that I like that you described about your seminar is like, it's super simple. I think that, you know, from my perspective, when things start to get sexy, they play a little bit to the people who don't know what the fuck they're doing, right? And so it plays to their interest. However, it doesn't play to their vested interest, their best interest, which is just developing the foundational whatever biomechanics or whatever. You know, how would you say you kind of compare to some of those other you know, PT recovery type stuff?
Yeah, that is something I have to talk about and change and prove-ish to people, because people put me into that world of like mobility WOD. We don't even talk about foam rolling or lacrosse ball work or anything. We have long monster bands and short mini bands, and that's it. And then the rest is your body. Oh, PVC pipes. But the biggest thing for me is that what any hands-on treatment and stuff I'm doing is really to look at like the body as a whole, movement patterns. That's how I decide what's wrong with you. So if you come and see me and you're like, yeah, I've got cupped, I've got needled, I've got scraped before, well, the style and everything I'm going to do on someone is all going to be based on seeing a deficit in a movement pattern, or an area that's going to create a problem. And I always say what I do is like basically like muscle detox. Like I'm your restart system, and that's about it. Like the rest of it is in your hands, and that's when we talk about like actual recovery programming. And the way that my program is put together, meaning like I teach classes weekly at the gym that I work in on this stuff. I mean, every single class, it has a rationale and a program, meaning, you know, movement 1 to movement 2 to movement 3 all has a purpose. And it's not, so you can't just watch a YouTube video and go, oh, I sort of want to do that today because my triceps sore. It's like, no, just do the whole program. And people leave, you know, saying, I feel so great. My workout yesterday, you know, the day after was awesome. And the last thing is that we always end with, so you go through like movement-based exercises, then you go through all of your activation systems, and then you end with what we talk about as like performance muscle slings. So that's all the big muscles that need to be working in unison around your hips and pelvis in order to generate the right power. So it's a layering system that way, and I never take CrossFit away from anybody or whatever this athlete is doing. So all it is, it's warm up better with the program, do your workouts, recover better, and do accessory work for your deficits, meaning one side of the body or one sling isn't working like the other side. And then come see me just to restart the system and sleep well and eat well.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the cool part about it. It's not like sport specific or level, like the level of an athlete specific, or, you know, age specific. It's I teach, you know, my brother who just qualified for the games, I teach him and have him working on some of the same things that I have, like, you know, 70-year-old women moms in the gym working on, you know. So, and it doesn't even have to do with CrossFit either. It just has you moving as a human being, you know.
Yeah, that's great. Just super effective, simple tools. That's awesome. So guys, Zach, I'll start with you. I mean, what inspires you to keep training? Obviously, I'm sure results is a huge part of that. That's probably the biggest motivating factor for people. But let's hear like some of the things that inspire you to keep training, as well as, you know, potentially some as inspiration from movies or music, if those play a role.
I definitely don't think I have any inspirations from movies or music. I'm an extremely competitive individual, and once I start something, I like to finish it. And ever since the first time I ever did CrossFit, I knew I wanted to win the games, and so that's really what pushes me every day. And I mean, a big motivating factor for me is that my dad won as a masters athlete, and I would love to do the same. You know, my dad is definitely my hero, you know, for me personally. So he wrestled in college, and that's why I wrestled in college, and kind of so on and so forth. So, but
are you a robot? You don't get jazzed when you hear certain music or anything like that, or do you just? I mean, and some people don't, and I don't mean to be rude, but yeah, it sounds like you're just like basically a competitive machine.
Yeah, I don't. I mean,
that's true.
Sure, music and stuff like that doesn't hurt, but that's definitely. I wouldn't say that's definitely my driving force.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think one of my greatest qualities and one of my worst qualities is how competitive I am and how badly I like to win. It can make me a bad sport at times, for sure.
Oh.
Well, also, if you go over to the Anderson household, like, you have to work out and be competitive. Like, I'm sitting there treating, and every 2 seconds someone else is going outside and working out and doing something, and you have to.
Yeah, it's a cycle.
Is there more?
You can't sit on the couch in that household.
Zach, is it just you and your brother, or you have other siblings?
There's 6 of us. There's 5 boys and 1 girl.
Jesus.
So Jacob was actually he got 9th in the Atlantic Regional this year. So he does CrossFit too, and then my little brother Samuel, he Olympic lifts. He's about to go compete at nationals here in a few weeks. And then my youngest brother Isaac, he's only 13, so he's just in middle school.
Well, what the fuck is he waiting for?
You can still win national championships of something that day.
He's playing real sports, you know?
Yeah. He's not trying to be the best at exercising.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. He's being a real athlete.
Lacrosse is blowing up in Atlanta. You should put a stick in his hands.
Yeah, he might have to grow his hair out a little bit, but well, cool. Lauren, I mean, what drives you in and day out working with these athletes, mainly with the Anderson family, it sounds like?
I like to see anyone that I work with win. I guess as the person on the sideline, I'm just as competitive with myself which Zach probably knows about me. Like, I will figure out any way possible to get someone better or to help someone train better or to do something to, like, constantly perform at your best. It can be, I guess that's probably one of my best and worst qualities too, because I'm extremely in my head about that and can be up until late hours, like, researching and trying to figure
I've gotten numerous texts at like 2 a.m. saying, I think I figured this out, Zach. What do you think? I don't know. I'm in bed. I have no idea.
Oh my God, that's passion. That's fantastic.
Yeah, I'm just such a sucker for, like, healing people and human movement and you know, just love people who enjoy to push themselves. And I've overcome a lot of physical issues myself, and so I just want to make sure everyone else knows that they can do it too, you know, to the level and eliteness of whatever it is that they want.
Yeah, with your help, with your healing hands.
Well, it's not just me. It's not just me. I mean, I would just say, you know, everything I do it's a team effort. And
sure.
I don't choose to work with people who don't want to work hard either. So there's a team around it. It's not me. So
yeah,
I've definitely denied people treatment before when I just know it's not going to be the right fit.
Right. And you know, so what's your plan? You've got a couple athletes coming out for the games then, so are you going to head out to California with?
Yep, I'm going to head out there and hang out. I actually, the company that I used to work for has a location in the StubHub Center. So I used to live out in Santa Monica, so hang out and catch up with some of those people and see what things they're doing.
You mean like a booth?
No, they actually have a training center in the StubHub Center.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So catch up with those people.
We'll be filming.
Yeah, we're gonna be Zach and I are gonna go do some like actual like major movement testing and analysis stuff where there's basically gonna be like 360 degrees of cameras and force plates all over him, and
We're doing our little seminar.
yeah, and we're doing some filming for all of like the pillar strength stuff with a company, which so all of that proximal stability for distal mobility, jazz as I call it. We're going to be working with some people out there and do that as well.
And coming by the CrossFit football booth to hang out with us.
Obviously, it's the most important part.
Definitely the most important part of the entire trip.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm not sure. When you get over there, I hope to have a dunk tank in full effect.
Yes.
Still working out the water, the H2O situation, but you know, I think that like if worse comes to worse, I'll just get like a pallet of champagne and we'll just do like a
Totally.
yeah,
Champagne of beers, so you're talking like Miller High.
No, nothing cowboy cold. No.
Cowboy cold, high life.
No. So Lauren, where can people find out information on the seminar, and are you guys planning on traveling anywhere in the coming months?
Yeah, we have seminars planned here around the Atlanta metro area in August, and then figuring out some stuff possibly in the Midwest, Central East areas as well. So, but you know, I love this stuff because I see it, you know, I just see change and people getting excited about it. And like I said, it's simple stuff, and seeing people get excited and not hurt and PRing and whatnot. So I will go anywhere that anyone wants to learn about what we're doing. So
yeah, and at the least you'll be at the game. So if people want to witness the experience, how might they do that?
I mean, at the games, I'll just be there, you know, on my own, so I'm not having to booth anything that,
Gotcha.
So I'll just be there on my own. But, you know, anyone can ever get in touch with me on my website. We put a lot of information on both of our Instagram feeds of stuff we're doing, and if anyone wants to hang out and have a beer after the games are done each day, I will be in a camper, 60s camper that I rented in Venice Beach.
Oh my God!
Did you rent an Airstream? Is it going to be cold?
No, it's cooler than an Airstream, Bobby.
Impossible. It cannot be cooler than an Airstream.
It's like turquoise, like wood paneled, like
okay, I like it.
Chic.
I like it.
Hey, the Grateful Dead just played Soldier Field last weekend.
I saw that.
Yeah, so that I'm kind of picturing like this hippie, flowered covered Volkswagen Bug / camper kind of thing, Winnebago.
Yeah.
Denny, it's a little bit classier than that.
Okay.
Lauren, be careful.
And Lauren, if you're gonna come to the Midwest, definitely, I'd love to get you guys over to our gym, because that what you're talking is perfect, and I think a lot of the coaches and athletes in this area could benefit from that.
For sure.
Denny's got a lot of jacked up athletes.
I do have one more question, Lauren. I think it was a week or two ago, you put up something on your Instagram that just kind of blew my mind. So I know this was not meant for kind of strength and conditioning, but you took a motor control framework and then talked about how you use this. I had to do a bunch of like behavior and movement change stuff in college, so I remember this one. So you talked about how you applied it to different movement patterns, so anterior pelvic tilt, internally rotated shoulders, and poor breathing patterns. We can definitely put this photo up on the show notes, but is there any way you can kind of talk about how you took this framework and then applied it to your practice?
Yeah, I'll say the number one thing, that framework was developed at Northwestern University, where I went to graduate school. And a lot of people who love sports and orthopedics and whatnot sort of didn't really like some of the Northwestern curriculum because it was so neurology based and human movement based. And I personally loved it because I already had interned for a year in strength and conditioning from people that were talking this way already. And so especially like in CrossFit and looking at movement patterns and how people are executing and, you know, what we say, like the initial conditions, what the person has to deal with. I went back to that, framework. And I tell, you know, I was talking to a PT friend of mine just a little bit ago about it and just saying, you know, there should be no orthopedics anymore. Like orthopedics relates like to injury, like I tore my ACL. But when it talks about like overuse syndromes and pain and tendonitis and everything, like it's your brain and it's your immune system that's going to allow you to change that and to heal, and it's all neurology. And if you can change, you know, if you can change the framework of where someone is, how they prepare for a movement, how they initiate the movement, and then we say execution and outcome, and was outcome achieved, you know, that makes, you know, effective and efficient movement patterns. And it's one thing like Zach and I say in the seminars is like, if it's not pretty, don't do it. Like every single time you train a movement, if you're not assessing those phases of motor control, so of movement that's being, you know, coming from your brain, if you're doing something and it's not pretty, like you just taught your brain something wrong. And so as a coach and as an athlete, like I think smart people who train smart, who move well, you know, they know that. And like, you know, like I said, Zach moves so well, but like one of the things that could be better on him to even take him to maybe places he doesn't know yet himself is changing a little bit of like some pelvic anterior tilt issues.
And so the reason this jumped out is just the way it was laid out and written from posture all the way up into it. This is extremely close to kind of where we kind of teach people to move. And a lot of the athletes we're dealing with, we are reteaching them. So I know you have experience with that. So this just really hit close to home in terms of how we prepare and develop an athlete literally from the ground up, because we put them on the ground.
Yeah, and even, you know, like for the preparation and all those things, like they talk about like stimulus identification and all of that. I mean, all this stuff is really based out of sort of like stroke and spinal cord injury when you're actually truly retraining like a lesion in the brain. But I sort of tell, you know, everyone, like if you're not moving well, if you don't know how to use things, like you have a lesion in the brain, like that stuff is not working. Like those, you know, that neural firing pattern is not working for you. It's off. You don't know how to do it. So it can all be looked at the same way. I just say the coolest thing about neurology things, like when there's disability and paralysis and stuff, is that just shows us the exaggerated thing of what is truly happening on a small level in healthy individuals.
And a lot of the dead bugs and stuff that we use, that all comes from spinal rehab, stroke rehab, which is pretty cool. And also, I don't know if you have any experience with this, but another thing that I'm looking into is kind of learning disabilities. So the same way that students would struggle with math or reading, that is also for an athlete's movement. Kind of people that have, maybe they're really good at math, but then they are really bad at moving, and kind of reverse that, you know, the dumb jock approach. So I don't know if you have any experience kind of with movement learning disabilities.
Not on anything that I've applied it outside of like a true, like from just physical therapy, meaning just applying it to someone who truly medically has a disability. But yeah, I mean, as far as that goes, you know, when you work with kids with disabilities, that like is really eye-opening to watch, and to be able to take what you learn there and then like apply it to, you know, an adult or an athlete. But yeah, I think even if it's like a mental disability and a learning disability, you know just how someone operates and where deficits can be, like doing personality tests and intakes, that's all going to change on how you can be a better coach, how you can be a better therapist, and how you can get the outcome that you want.
Nice, guys. Well, does anyone have any other questions for Lauren or Zach while we still have them?
Yeah, if I could just kind of jump in.
Sure.
Lauren, when you've come across athletes who do have anterior pelvic tilt, what are some of the steps that you like to take to start like correcting that?
So one of the biggest things is just to assess it from the point of, is this something truly structural, meaning how the person is developed, so their bony structure, or is it just how they move in musculature, or someone that sits too much in front of a computer in the day? So you first have to assess it from there so that you know what you're truly working with, and taking it in phases out of that. Like one of the, like with Zach, his is much more sort of like a movement based thing. Like he has,
Yeah, let's just say like they're kind of stuck in like this extension or something.
Yeah, so basically with that, I take everything down and I have a large Pilates background and I studied Pilates like insane for a while for rehab purposes because it's such a good complement to human movement and sports performance. So with that, I basically take everyone back down sort of how we do in like beginners Pilates things, where you're doing a lot of things on the ground or on your stomach where you have a lot of stability and a lot of input, right? Because you have so much cueing that's coming from the ground. And so we sort of start there and see like is it the easiest that this person can get into a neutral spine position. And then I just tell everyone, every move you make is to maintain that. So no matter if you're doing some banded floor exercises, you have to hold this position, and your speed, your repetition scheme, and everything is all going to be about that you have to hold that. That's the only thing you should be thinking about. And then like progress into some like side plank positions, progress into some hands and knees quadruped positions, and then eventually get like from a kneeling to half kneeling to standing. So we do it like in a developmental way, just like the same way children and human movement develop. So revert back to your basics, then start learning from there, gradually get into a kneeling, gradually get into a half kneeling, and then obviously standing up against gravity, you have the most, you have to be the most aware there because there's no afferent stimulant information to help you control your pelvis. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And do you find that more women have that issue than men?
Yes. I mean, well, just because of a woman's pelvis, like you can take two pelvic bones and pick out which one's the woman and which one's the man, regardless of seeing anything else. So obviously that women are more predisposed to it. I think the biggest thing in when it relates to CrossFit is sort of like everybody is predisposed to it because of the amount of like overhead extension work and the fact that, what's the number one cue people get? Like drive through your heels, push your knees out. Like both of those cues are going to create people over time and repetition to create an anterior pelvic tilt. So, and from a CrossFit standpoint, I mean, everyone is trying to go there.
Annie, does that answer your question?
Absolutely, and thank you for that.
Sure.
Nice. How can people follow you guys? I mean, what's your social media situation like? Are you guys on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all that good stuff?
I am on Facebook and Instagram, just under my name. And then if you do repair and recovery on YouTube, we've started to launch some videos on there.
Oh, cool.
My website is www.lpdpt.com, and that's how people can get in touch with me and where I post when seminars are happening. Zach?
Yeah, I'm on Facebook and I'm on Instagram. Instagram is ZAAnderson023, and but.
What's Zach? What's your MySpace name?
Do you remember what it was?
I never had a MySpace. I didn't have a computer really growing up, so.
Just weights and hate in your heart, right?
Pretty much. We were actually homeschooled, so my mom would just kick us out of the house, and we would just go basically fight. We'd play football or something, then we get into a fight, and then we do something else and get into another fight.
Your mom is awesome.
She is awesome. She's amazing.
That's phenomenal. No, that's great. You guys, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show. I know how much we appreciate it and had been looking forward to having you both on. So I know that Zach, you probably have like 2 more workouts to hit today.
At least.
And Lauren, I know that you've got a lot of clients, and next time I'm in Atlanta, I'm definitely going to stop in. I know Allison has been telling me that that your work is just phenomenal, and Zach just ringing true to the same note. So I'll have to come and visit next time we're in Atlanta. And Bobby and Tex, aren't you guys going to be in Atlanta soon?
NFL opening weekend, September 12th and 13th, and then we should be sticking around for Atlanta Falcons Monday Night Football. Check it out, my boy Colin Mooney.
More importantly, though, that's my birthday weekend.
Oh,
holy
birthday
shit,
weekend
dude.
in Atlanta, Monday night game, seminar, hanging out with Lauren. It's going to be a good time.
Hey, Bobby, I just shot Playtech a text saying I was thinking I'd coming down there. I need to crash at his house. So this could be the biggest birthday party of your life.
That could be the best birthday present ever, Denny.
Yeah, you might get a gift scraping by Lauren.
Hey, you get a free one.
Quite the gift that would be.
Birthday scraping on your
Birthday
shins.
Scraping. It's you know, I think I have a few left on my punch card for a free scraping, so it's
Right, you do it 99 times, your 100th is free.
your 100th collarbone neck scraping is free.
If you survive. Well, cool. Lauren, we look forward to seeing you. Zach, are you going to be traveling with to the games?
Yeah, I'll be out there coaching my brother.
Very cool. Well, I hope that you guys swing by, take your best shot at the dunk tank. We'll probably have some hot babe sitting up there waiting to get dunked. So we look forward to seeing you guys, and thanks again so much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks so much for having us.
Thank you.
Zach, should we reserve like an hour for you to donate to the dunk booth?
Yes.
You can reserve an hour for me throwing down on the dunk booth, you know? I'll be dunking people.
Very competitive. All right, guys. Talk to you later. Bye.
Thank you.
Now it's time for you to empower your performance. Get in touch with Zach and check out his training by following him on Instagram at ZAAnderson023. You can also find Zach on Facebook under Zachary Anderson. Lauren can be contacted on Instagram and Facebook under her full name, Lauren Polivka. Be sure to check out information on upcoming repair and recovery workshops and other resources by heading to www.lpdpt.com. Ladies and gentlemen, the CrossFit Games is upon us in just mere days. If you plan on attending, please take the time to stop by the CrossFit football booth to shake our hand, give us feedback about the podcast, and take your turn at our Wet and Wild sports skill test. Next episode, we are joined by the infamous Olympic lifting gurus, Coach Mike Bergener and son Bo Bergener. Until next week, bye!